Ulawanaka Fiji, and welcome to another episode of For the Record. Fiji and India have been growing closer in bilateral relations and as countries of the world with a common goal. Just a few days ago, the Prime Minister Voreqe Bainimarama himself reminisced about the visit by his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi about a year ago. In fact, on November 19th last year, to be exact. But to talk about how things have moved forward since the visit by Narendra Modi and how we are capitalizing on that very momentous visit, we have with us in studio Fiji's High Commissioner to India, Mr. Yogesh Karan. Mr. Karan, thank you very much for being here. You've been in New Delhi in India working at our High Commission. After the visit of Mr. Modi, of course, there would have been a lot of communication back and forth, a lot going on behind the scenes. But if you were to give an overall picture of how we have progressed following the visit by the Indian Prime Minister, where do you think we stand at the moment?
Thank you, Edwin, for inviting me to speak to you. The visit by Prime Minister Modi, as you know, it's been quite a long while, 34 years, to the last Prime Minister of India visited Fiji, the late Indira Gandhi. This visit was highly sought and it created a lot of curiosity in India. People questioned me, wanted to know that Prime Minister has accepted to visit Fiji. Sometimes you get asked questions. Fiji is a small country, but I think it's not really a matter of size. We had excellent bilateral relations with India, and we have strengthened it over years. After the visit of Prime Minister, and I'd like to thank the media, both Fiji and in India. We had excellent media conference in India before the visit and after the visit. So Fiji had lots of publicity, and you would be aware that the cost of advertising or any advertisement you want to put in both the TV or the print media is very expensive in India. This was an opportunity for us where we were able to market Fiji to the extent. And after the visit, a lot of inquiries have come to my office for trade, even for tourism, and also Bollywood. There's a lot of discussions been happening. To bring trade to Fiji. People have asked our office for data in terms of what India is exporting to Fiji and what Fiji is importing from other parts of the world. So I see that months and years to come, our trade relations will strengthen more, and also in tourism, I'm expecting a lot more visitors out of India in the forthcoming years.
You made an interesting point about months and years. You expect to see changes. Are you saying that the visit by Prime Minister Modi and the progress that your High Commission has been able to make, you're setting a long-term goal? Is that something you're working on? Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. The reason I mentioned months and years because to promote Fiji in a country of size of India is not an easy task. India has 29 states. And each state is like a country of its own, and with our presence in New Delhi, with the number of staffing, it becomes challenging at times. But nonetheless, and there's the smarter ways of looking at things. We have just opened, as you would know, the honorary consul office, the consulate office in Mumbai, and we appointed honorary consul for Fiji, the first honorary consul for Fiji in Mumbai, and we'll be doing same in Calcutta very soon. In fact, we have identified a person for Calcutta and also for Chennai, and we're looking at other cities, the fast upcoming states like Bangalore and even Hyderabad. So our presence will be much more felt, and I think this would lead Fiji's recognition to another height in India, and I'm very positive that in years to come, more people will know where Fiji is. Sometimes I get very strange questions that people ask that, is Fiji in Africa? So we need to market more. We need to put a lot more advertisements. But as I said, it's expensive. But during the visit of the Prime Minister, I was invited to a few of the channels, so it was an excellent opportunity to put Fiji in the global map.
The honorary consuls, Mumbai obviously is the economic capital of
Yes.
India. It drives economies and trade worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Was it more so because of the trade potential that Mumbai presents, or more because of Bollywood, or a mix of both?
I guess it's a mix of both, because Mumbai is the industrial and commercial hub of India. So we thought to start with Mumbai, and Bollywood, as you know, that films have been done in Fiji, and this person that we've appointed is very well acquainted with both Bollywood and Hollywood. So I foresee that we will have excellent contact to talk about trade in Mumbai, and more importantly, a good A-banner films for Fiji. Currently, I'm in discussion with a very good producer who did very good movies in the mid-80s and early 90s.
I suppose it's too early to talk about what exactly this project is.
Yes, I guess so.
All right, fair enough. The other honorary consuls, Calcutta, Chennai, Bangalore, these are up-and-coming states. What potential do you see there?
So when you talk about Bangalore, is virtually IT, and Chennai, very good in medical, very good in agriculture. The south of India, as you know, is very good in agriculture. So there have been few visits by our ministers where I have taken them to see areas such as pharmaceutical production, also in agriculture, the kind of things they do, amazing things they do. They're able to farm prawns in the same plot of land, seawater, 2 seasons, and on the same farm they're able to plant rice in seawater. So this is through extensive research, very high level technological research being done by India. So, and I think we will be able to duplicate that here in time to come.
All right, on that note, Mr. Karan, it's time to take a break. Don't go in here. We'll be right back for more discussions. Welcome back. Our guest tonight is our High Commissioner to India, Mr. Yogesh Karan, who's currently in Fiji, reporting back to his line ministry and giving us an update tonight on the show about what's going on between Fiji and India. Mr. Karan, when we talk about trade, obviously it goes without saying that India is so much larger than Fiji and has so much more potential for us to sell to them than for India to buy from Fiji. But would we be in a position where we can meet demand for India, and what would they be interested in?
I think that's a pretty difficult question to answer, because India's demand, as you know, is very huge. But we have some premium products, as you know, still to be marketed in Fiji. There has been interest from few about our bottled water and the fragrances. So we need to talk a little more to them, and obviously the distance between the two countries is an issue at the moment, and we are looking at some direct flight connections to Fiji, smoother ways. Yes. But really, to answer your question, I think in terms of our products to India, I think we have not so much to offer, but trade between the two countries is in favor of India at the moment.
And would you like it to be more balanced? Is that something you're working on?
It will be, ideally yes, but it will be very difficult to do that, because the two countries have definitely different dynamics and size and demography, so it will be a big challenge.
But if not in trade, there are other ways that India can be beneficial to us. I mean, earlier you were talking about agriculture, farming methods that we can adopt. What other areas apart from trade are you exploring?
The other areas, the key areas that I have been working on, one is medical care. As you know, that India has become world's medical hub, medical tourism and for medical treatment. I have done some research on this medical care in India in terms of costs, along with number of countries. The cost is unmatched, and similarly, I see that we have excellent opportunity for medical tourism in the country. We need super specialty hospitals. We need affordable medicine, drugs, affordable medical care, and so on. So apparently, at this time, we're having a joint working group with the Indian government. The Ministry of Health is here with very high-level officials. This is the second joint working group between the two health ministries, which was welcomed and opened by the acting Minister for Health. This is a very important meeting. There are a number of key issues that have been discussed, and I think Fiji is going to benefit greatly if we are able to get this actioned. For example, there have been discussions. I have been discussing with the Indian government of having a manufacturing setup here for pharmaceutical, for basic drugs, and also a major distribution center for pharmaceuticals for all of Pacific. India has done a similar model in other parts of the world and is very successful. Similarly, if we are able to do this, our cost of medicine will decrease significantly, and a lot more people will be able to benefit.
A lot of the medicines that we do already have in Fiji do come out of India, but there are shipping costs involved, and then sometimes there's a storage issue for these medicines as well.
Well, I guess there is the issue of distance, but with this day and time, I don't think that's we can say that it's a major component or as a barrier. India is one of the largest producers of drugs in the world. India provides medicine to 200 or more countries. I don't think there's any country in the world which does not buy Indian medicine. So here, if we buy directly from the source, and we have carried out an evaluation. There are companies been shortlisted, evaluated. Recently, the health minister was in India. We have met the manufacturers, and these companies have been also certified by the Indian drug controller. So we are in the process of looking at ways of getting this directly from India.
And this would actually mean that we would have a dedicated supplier in India.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Our market is very small, and it required a lot of convincing to the Indians that Fiji is it's not only Fiji, it's all of Pacific. So we managed to succeed on that, and they are keen to supply to Fiji.
And these negotiations that you're having to have a manufacturing plant in Fiji, you're doing this as we speak. The talks are still going on?
Yes, there is this discussion is currently on with the Indian government and also with the members of the Confederation of Indian Industries, CII, and FICCI, which is Federation of Indian Industry and Commerce. So they have sectors which deal with pharmaceutical and medical equipment and so on. So I think not only the equipment, in terms of medical supply, India is a very good hub. Currently, the Honorable Prime Minister Modi, he has challenged his industries to make all medical equipments in India. India is wanting to manufacture what all India needs in the country. So this will provide opportunity for us to have a source in India and compare prices and quality from our existing suppliers and benefit.
This brings me to my next point about tourism. You mentioned there are talks going on about having direct flights between Fiji to India. How would that change the paradigm, especially for tourism?
Our air services agreement dates back to 1970. So currently we are reviewing the air services agreement. This will allow better connectivity to Fiji. I have had discussions with both Air India, the chairman of Air India, and I have had meetings with Jet Airways. So there are opportunities, but we need to sort this out first. The moment is being reviewed by Fiji, and we are looking at the code sharing with either of these airlines.
And if this were to be successful, if we were to get direct flights, do you expect a lot of people from India would be coming into Fiji for tourism? Bearing in mind that we're trying to grow the Asian market as a whole, China is a huge focus, but India, it seems, is sort of slipping under the radar for tourism.
Edwin, I'll go back to my earlier comment that we need to market Fiji. We need to promote Fiji in India. When I get questions like that, is Fiji in Africa? No, is Mount Fuji or something like that? So which means that it's under-marketed. There's a lot of work required to market Fiji's tourism in India. And India's outbound is increasing, and recent research surveys have found that Indians are one of the top spenders. So I don't think it's an issue of traveling so long to Fiji, but there has to be flights and routes that would interest the Indians to come to Fiji. I think we have got excellent product to offer to the Indians, which will interest them. The Indians, the elite Indians have traveled to countries that many times, like the Europe and United States, UK. So they're exploring new destinations, and they want more exotic destinations. And Fiji is, we are very well. We have become a world brand, but this world brand needs to be taken to India in a very structured manner, because it can be very costly. But we need to see which states have got highest outbounds, and which sector, which age group would interest them. Definitely there has been a lot of discussions, a lot of interest for honeymooners to come to Fiji. So those fat Indian weddings cost millions of dollars, so we need to be equally equipped to be able to host this kind of weddings.
All right, with that we've come to the end of this segment. We'll be back shortly, and we will continue discussions with Fiji's High Commissioner to India, Mr. Yogesh Karan. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the show. We'll continue discussions with our High Commissioner to India, Mr. Yogesh Karan. Mr. Karan, when Prime Minister Modi came down, of course, there were a number of agreements signed, a number of commitments made, but one of the most interesting ones were the announcement that there would be visa-free travel from Fiji to India and vice versa, I understand. Has that been finalized? Of course, there is paperwork that goes on behind the scenes, and you need to prepare for it, but where do things stand at the moment?
The announcement which was made regarding visa, it was visa online, so that you get approval online. When you arrive in India, then visa is issued. There has been a lot of discussion and a lot of queries has come to my office regarding the understanding of what was visa-free. I think there has been issues that has been raised to my office, and I believe the High Commission here would have received such inquiries as well. At the moment, you apply for online visa, but I'm sure that by end of August or mid-August, there will be some. I'm expecting some announcements, because I have been in discussions with the Indians that Fiji could be listed in the list of countries which don't require visa at all, in the same reciprocal manner that we don't require visa for the Indians. So I'm expecting and very hopeful that this announcement would be made very soon.
That would be a huge achievement on your part if this was successful. How confident are you?
Well, as I said, Edwin, I have been right at it, working with the Indians, expressing the concerns. One of the issues that is at the moment, our medical referrals to India when there are emergencies, processes could take time. So when there is visa on arrival, I think it will speed up a lot of things, and people can benefit. So all I can say at this moment that I'm expecting some announcements next month.
And do you expect this would also see a lot more Fijians traveling to India? Of course, we have links to India in terms of the heritage of the Indo-Fijian community. A lot of people always talk about wanting to visit and wanting to go see India, but they never actually do. How much of a difference would it make if visa-free travel were to be facilitated?
I think it will be wonderful, without this paperwork, and the people outside the capital city or in the rural sector, not everyone has got access to internet. So applying visa online would be very difficult for them. If it is visa free, naturally, you pick up your passport, a valid passport, of course, and get on the plane. So I see not only for this medical care, but it will make life easier.
You've been in India now for a number of years. You've had time to see what India is like, adjust to their lifestyle. For people who want to visit or who are curious about what India is behind the movie scenes or away from the movie sets, I mean, what sort of description or what sort of reflection can you give us about what India is like?
I think there appears to be a lot of misconception about India, the traditional views of India, and people tend to judge India by what they see on the road. It's not about that. India is a superpower. It's fast becoming, that all economic science in India, that India will be the world's #1 economy by 2045. India has got a very young population. By 2025, average age of India will be 27 years, while the world is aging. In India's population is very young. So there's a lot of dynamism. There is a lot of potential for this country. Already, India is on economic growth of 8%, and it's expected that it will have double-digit growth very soon. And with this large population that India has, 1.24 billion people, the largest democracy in the world, 29 states, it's got a lot to offer to the world, and the domestic demand itself is so huge. So I think the Indians have done well in the medical sector, in the agriculture. They've become one of the largest producers of food in the world, and the kind of things that you see. For instance, if I can give an example, the price of tomatoes hardly change, and they have 4 seasons, and the supply is fantastic. So naturally, there are smarter ways of producing the agricultural products. This is where we need to capitalize, or we will have to capitalize on the expertise of Indians and making Fiji self-sufficient. India is self-sufficient on food. You hardly find the imports in the country, and it's growing. In fact, at the moment, they have surplus sugar. So feeding 1.24 billion people is not an easy task, but let's say if you happen to buy vegetables, you stop at one stall or one shop and you get everything, and that's 7 days a week. So similar models and a similar supply is needed in Fiji, and I'm hopeful that we will be able to achieve this soon.
Are you trying to get these scientists from India to come and work in Fiji or share ideas? How do you want to work this out?
I think we need expertise in the country. We need a lot of research. We need to strengthen our research. Likewise, we need to expose our people. We need to take our people to India and let them see how things are done. I think being on site and seeing would be very educational, and it's very important. Exposure is very important. So I think both methodologies are important.
All right, and on that note, we will end this segment. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. Good evening and welcome back to For the Record. Our guest tonight is our High Commissioner to India, Mr. Yogesh Karan. Mr. Karan, the Prime Minister announced very recently, our Prime Minister announced that Fiji has decided to officially support India's bid to be part of the UN Security Council. Did your High Commission have anything to do with getting us this far in terms of backing India?
Well, for these bilaterals, when there are such support needed, a number of countries do approach us, and our foreign policy then advises us we are advised by the foreign policy where we can be of support to any country or where we are a partner to any country, depending on our priority and our needs. So I'm glad that our Prime Minister has announced, and I'm very happy about it.
It's obviously a reflection of how the two countries have come closer in the last few months, especially after the visit by Prime Minister Modi.
Sorry, I couldn't really
It's very reflective of how Fiji and India are now closer than they used to be.
Yes, bilaterals, Edwin, cannot be done overnight. It requires long years of work and constructive work. Diplomats, we have to be very smartly engaged with the foreign country and the authorities in the country, and likewise the country's diplomats are engaged. So it's a healthy sign. It's very positive, and the visit by Prime Minister Modi, as I said, was very significant for both countries, and we can see the results.
Of course, I suppose you wouldn't really be in a position to talk about the UN or the Security Council itself, but the fact that Fiji has taken this position and that it makes a difference to India goes to show that Fiji also has some push and pull power in the UN itself, some influence there at least.
Well, I said earlier on, Edwin, that size does not matter. I think Fiji has done very well in its foreign policies. We have more formal diplomatic relations than we ever had. We are now seeing outside the box and having a very robust foreign policy leads to such achievements. And we'll work. Our task is to work on the foreign policy and present Fiji at a much higher height every moment.
What are some of the other bilateral issues or government-to-government issues that your office is working on at the moment?
The other sector, apart from medical health, is agriculture. I've mentioned few, but agriculture. Education is another one. Recently, I think we managed to get 500 tablets from the Indian government. I think it's already arrived in Fiji. So our rural schools and our children will benefit from these 500 tablets. Education sector is very important. In India, as you know, education is very, very competitive. To get into medical college, you need average of 98.5% marks, best 4 subjects to get into a medical college. So education is another area that we want to benefit in. I have been in discussion with the Indians regarding tele-education. We need equipment, we need technology, so that we are very well hooked up with the rural sector and school in terms of consistency and quality. So education is another area that I'm working on. Renewable energy is another sector. India is very strong on renewable energy. We could benefit a lot out of solar. India is now even producing electric cars. They've just launched this Mahindra electric cars. So these are affordable and very cheap and durable vehicles. That has got a huge export out of India. So renewable energy is something that Fiji could learn and benefit out of India. We could possibly have manufacturing plants over here for solar panels, good quality solar panels, understanding our climatic conditions. If we have such assembly or manufacturing, then the cost is going to reduce, and we have pretty good supply of sunlight in Fiji, and we need to harvest it and make good use.
You mentioned education. India does provide a small amount of scholarships for Fijians to study in India. Are you working on this front as well? Because India's education system, as you said, is one of the best in the world, and people are always looking for that next step. Are you trying to get more scholarships?
I think, Edwin, the number of scholarships is not really small. They provide 30 scholarships per year. So approximately there would be about 100 students on Indian government scholarship studying in India at the moment. And I have requested for increase in the allocation. In 2011, there were 20 and managed to get an increase of 10. And I'm still proposing that our quota for Fiji is increased, and in new sectors where we don't have expertise. I'm trying very hard that, in fact, this bilateral meeting that we had, the second joint working group meeting, we have proposed that our students are allowed in undergraduate programs in India on government scholarship. So we're hopeful that this will succeed. The second program which Fiji has been benefit and will benefit further is the ITEC program. It's the Indian Technical Economic Cooperation. As you know, that Prime Minister Modi visited Fiji, he announced that the ITEC quota for Fiji has been doubled. So we expect this year to be a very good one. Now already seeing that a lot of Fijians are coming to India for professional training and development in areas of IT and also in medical and agriculture and so many other areas. So we continuously push from our side to the Indians that this quota needs to be getting bigger and fatter, and we have achieved a double of that. And with the ICCR scholarship, Indian Council for Cultural Relations, under the Ministry of External Affairs, I'm expecting an increase as well.
These 100 that we have at the moment, I suppose they would be studying a broad spectrum of programs. Where are the interests for Fiji?
Yes, they are. In fact, excluding medicine, they're in all areas of study. Recently, as you know, one of our students got 5 gold medals in India in journalism. So that was a very good achievement for Fiji. It got good publicity, and our students have done well. It's very competitive, but I'm very happy with the results of the students. Initially, it's a little struggle, but I think once the student settles, it is good.
And that's the end of another segment, Mr. Karan. We'll be right back for tonight's ending segment. Welcome back to tonight's show. We are speaking with Fiji's High Commissioner to India, Mr. Yogesh Karan. Mr. Karan, you've had a meeting with our Prime Minister during your time in Fiji. You've met with him. Obviously, you must have briefed him about your work back in India, but what are some of the ideas that the Prime Minister shared with you for the long term?
Well, the important one is the bilateral. We are now engaging with India very strongly. As I mentioned about foreign, we've got a very robust foreign policy now. The areas which I have already mentioned, these were the key areas. I mean, there's a lot that you can talk about and do, but in terms of priority, the ones which I have mentioned earlier in the segments, these are the ones that we have talked about, and discussions are underway for advancements in these. In some areas we have done well, but I think there are new areas that we need to capture that I have mentioned, and I can assure you that India will be very happy to support us in those areas.
The Prime Minister is due to visit India, an official visit by the Prime Minister and a delegation coming up very soon. We expect this will relate to a number of meetings and a number of possible agreements and memorandums of understandings being signed. But briefly, what are some of the focus areas that we can expect when the Prime Minister is in India?
This meeting which you have mentioned, the Prime Minister's visit, is the second meeting with Pacific Island leaders. So India is hosting the first, as you know, it was in Fiji when Prime Minister visited Fiji. It was hosted in Fiji during the Prime Minister's visit on the 19th of November, and it was announced that the second meeting will be hosted by India in India. So the second meeting of the India and Pacific Island leaders meeting will be from the 18th to the 22nd, and I've seen the list that all Prime Ministers are coming of the Pacific Islands, and I look forward to fruitful discussions. Some discussions will be continuation of what was discussed over here. One key area is climate change. Our Prime Minister has been talking about climate change and the importance to address it very, very quickly in some parts of Fiji and also for the Pacific. So climate change, I guess, will be one of the major agenda. Apart from that, there will be discussion on telemedicine. We have just finished meeting with Prime Minister's office, and we have invited interest from all stakeholders in the key areas, and once this is done, then we'll prioritize and submit to the Prime Minister's office for his discussions. But in general, I think the discussion could be around medical, agriculture, renewable energy, climate change, low-cost housing. India is very good in low-cost housing. And there is also on the program for the private sector involvement, there is going to be government to business meeting and B2G and G2B meetings from both sides. So once this is finalized by Prime Minister's office, then I'll be able to say some more details on this.
It's quite encouraging that Fiji is able to open this opportunity for the rest of the Pacific. The first meeting, as you said, was held in Fiji when Mr. Modi visited. So that must also be quite pleasing for you and your efforts back in India.
Yes, I think bilaterals are very important. And when prime ministers or heads of states visit, I think it brings us closer. And India is preparing very well for this visit for 14 prime ministers. And I look forward that this meeting will have very fruitful results.
Fiji has recently been given property in the diplomatic quarter of New Delhi. This is also takes us back to the visit by Prime Minister Modi when this was announced, and then thereon the discussions carried on. I'm told that this is some very prime location and very lucrative property that Fiji has been able to secure as compared to maybe some other high commissions and embassies in New Delhi. What's so special about this?
Well, Edwin, this particular lot which has been marked for Fiji is in Chanakyapuri, and Chanakyapuri is a diplomatic enclave. It's a very prime area, very close to Rashtrapati Bhavan and India Gate, almost like 10 minutes drive. So price of real estate in India is perhaps one of the most expensive in the world now. And we have had a reciprocal arrangement with the land that we have allocated for the Indian mission here. And we're very privileged, I think, to secure that land, because there's hardly any land available in that area, and India has one of the most diplomatic missions in the world, which it hosts. So Fiji is very fortunate to be very close to the bigger countries, superpowers, and we look forward to fly our flag in this particular lot. I think it's currently valued at $120 million.
Dollars or by Fiji?
Fiji dollars.
120 million Fiji dollars.
Yeah.
We're basically sitting with the bigwigs of the world.
Yes.
Who are our closest neighbor?
We are just next to Qatar and the French embassy.
Do you expect some of the other embassies may be jealous of our location?
Well, I can't comment on that, Edwin, but all I can say that we've been very fortunate to secure that land.
All right. With that, Mr. Karan, thank you very much for making time for being on the show with us tonight. Best of luck with your efforts in India, and I'm sure there will be more to see and more to benefit for Fiji and for India in time to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edwin.
That was the show for tonight. Remember, if you have comments or questions, you can email us for the record at fbc.com.fj. But for now, up next is Nemani Delambatiki with his weekly segment called My Say. From me, for now, good night. See you next weekend.
Good evening. I'm Nemani Delambatiki of the Fiji Sun. Welcome to Fiji's only TV editorial show. This week on My Say, I will talk about police service delivery. On Wednesday this week, I received a call from a retired senior police officer expressing his concern about the Nakasi police slow response to an emergency call. He had received a call from a taxi driver, Ali Hussein, of Waila 3A in the Wilebu housing near Nosori, complaining that he was still waiting for police to arrive. I looked at my watch and it said 7:53 a.m. Mr. Hussein had driven to the Nakasi police post at 5:30 a.m. to lodge a report about thieves breaking into his house and stealing more than 12,000 New Zealand dollars and 230 Fijian dollars when he was asleep. The disturbing thing was that a lone policewoman was on duty and she looked half asleep. Mr. Hussein was told that his complaint would be attended to when officers reported to work a few hours later. Why didn't she call for reinforcements from Nosori, Police Special Response Unit in Makoi and Valelebu? It turned out that the first police team arrived at 8:45 a.m. and the forensic team got there at about 11 a.m. The whole conduct of the Nakasi police post in this one incident is shocking in modern day policing. It is preposterous that one female officer mans a police post for a whole night. Serious crimes are mainly committed during the night. The response time of more than 3 hours is unacceptable and inexcusable. The commanding officer for the police station should be held accountable. He should explain why only one officer was on duty and it took that long to attend to the case. Even if they could not catch the thieves quickly, they could have advised the banks to watch out for customers with large amounts of cash in New Zealand currency. When police finally turned up at the crime scene, the thieves had plenty of time to go into a bank and change the money into about 17,000 Fijian dollars. According to the American Police Beat, the average response time for an emergency call is 10 minutes. Based on this standard, the Nakasi police response time was woefully too long. We hope that this is an isolated case. It's a big worry if this is the norm in other police posts. When the late Isikia Savua became police commissioner, he took policing to the people and the communities by setting up these police posts. They were designed as a crime prevention tool by establishing police presence and visibility in the various communities. Police posts now dot the country. In the wake of the Nakasi debacle, Police Commissioner Ben Gronwald and Minister Timothy Natuva should conduct an audit of all police posts to determine their viability and effectiveness. We do not want to see these posts sitting there like white elephants, handicapped by a lack of manpower and vehicles. We want them to operate as they should be, manned by the required number of officers to look after their designated areas of operation and backed up by at least a vehicle each. If foot patrols have been phased out, they should be restarted as soon as possible. Police interaction with the community is vital, and having a physical presence is the best way. Police build rapport with the community and networking for intelligence gathering. When people move to a new area to buy property and live there, one of the top priorities in their shopping list is security. How safe is the neighborhood from the criminal elements? Police offer them that assurance. Police have had some success in community policing like the Ndovata program. They need to replicate it in areas which need help. They can start with the Nakasi police post. I'm Neman in Batiki, and that was my say this week. For more of my views, you can read the Fiji Sun. See you next week.